Hey everyone, the title of today's message is Presence Part 2. The Bible verse is Mark 2:25 through 28. I might get this name wrong, but I'm going to try. In the days of Abiathar, the high priest, David entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which is lawful only to the priest to eat, and he also gave some to his companions. Then Jesus said to them, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even on the Sabbath." The disciples were walking town to town with Jesus, listening to him teach and watching him heal. More than that, they were getting to know him on a personal, intimate level. They were hanging out, telling stories, laughing, eating, and sleeping. They were communing with him. I'm guessing the more time that they spent with Jesus, the less that anyone else's opinions of them mattered. Then again, the Pharisees had power, and there were consequences for breaking Sabbath law, like imprisonment and even death by stoning. I imagine the moment of confrontation had a few of the disciples shaking in their sandals. Perhaps the hotheads were clenching their fists. Maybe a few were so sick of religious regulation they'd grown apathetic. Regardless, all disciples' eyes were on Jesus as he stood his ground in the field of grain. And then he took the ground and told them the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even on the Sabbath. Mark 2:27 through 28. Two sentences that were not great for the Pharisees' relations. The Sabbath was made for man, verse 27, meant that one of God's purposes in creating the law was to bless. He wanted people to rest and refuel, to spend time with family and friends, and to be intentional about remembering his blessings, provisions, and constant presence. #self-care. The Sabbath was intended to be life-giving and in harmony with its first observance, the day God rested after creating all life. Conversely, not man for Sabbath, verse 27, meant that man was not supposed to be burdened by the rule as if serving it. God simply desired communion with his people, void of the tasks that distracted them during the week. He wanted them to be present with him and for them to be more aware of his presence with them. The basic requirements for any healthy relationship. But then the conversation got dicey. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath, verse 28. Up until this point, perhaps a few of the Pharisees were tracking with Jesus. Lest we impugn King David, perhaps this plucking thing isn't worth our time. And he's right that God made the Sabbath for our good. Since these men were just eating and not cooking, we've probably bitten off a little more than we can chew here. No pun intended. Wait, did he just imply that he's Lord of the Sabbath? Yes, Jesus repeatedly referred to himself as the Son of Man, a reference not lost on the prophecy experts he was talking to. It's how Daniel referred to the coming Messiah in the 6th century BC, Daniel 7:13. And now Jesus used it to refer to himself and assert the only logical conclusion. He is Lord. He rules over the Sabbath. First David, then Daniel. It was 1-2 Old Testament punch that threw the Pharisees off balance enough to end the exchange right there, for the time being anyways. Here's the irony. These Pharisee regulations, which protected the tabernacle pomp and circumstance they adhered to and the Sabbath rest they keep so keenly enforced, were all for the purpose of acknowledging and honoring God's presence. Yet standing in front of them was the one their lives revolved around, and they refused to see it. The disciples saw it, the needy crowds that came from far and wide saw it, but these men, so close to proximity to Jesus, both physically and intellectually, somehow could not. Perhaps if they'd been more willing to set aside the distracting tasks of the day in exchange for more of God's presence, they would have, because he was in the room. Prayer focus for today. Ask God to forgive you for when you've prioritized other things over His presence, and ask Him for eyes to see Him when He's there. Moving forward questions. What do you prioritize over spending time in God's presence? In what area of your life are you rejecting Christ's lordship? What is your favorite thing about spending time with God, and what do you need to change to be able to spend more time with Him? That's all that I have for today. I hope you all have a blessed evening, and I will be back on here tomorrow. Thank you.